Hey folks, I'm checking out this new drum library by Spitfire Audio in collaboration with Charlie Clouser. It's called Hammers, and it's a really nifty and very cool new percussion library. A little background, Charlie Clouser, he's a composer, most notably known for doing the whole Saw film franchise, and previous to that he was part of 9 Inch Nails for quite a long time. So being that I'm a huge 9 Inch Nails fan, and I'm also a big fan of Charlie's work, I was very happy to see that I got an email with a promo copy of this to check it out. So here we are, and I've had it for about a couple weeks now, and I've been diving into it a bit, just sinking my teeth in, and it's inspiring. I mean, that's really the only way to put it. It's really, really good, very well recorded. Shout out to Martin Cook, who I went to Berkeley with, who actually was he was one of the engineers on this, so super cool. But I'm just going to talk through what I like about it so far, show you some of it, and then I made a little demo track just behind that I'll play after. And let's just dive right in. So when you open up Hammers for the first time, this is the interface. It runs in Spitfire's interface. It's not a contact instrument. It's Spitfire's own instrument, its own plugin. And it loads up with an ensemble patch typically and has all the various instruments spread across the keyboard. I currently just brought it up to the bass drums because I like bass drums a lot. You know, who would have thought I made dance music once upon a time, right? So here we go. They sound like that. There are different styles of articulation with this, or different sounds, I should say. There also are articulations within. So this is a solo damped bass drum. If we click this, this is the solo open, nice and heavy. And then 4 players at once. So you can hear the flamming and just the performance of 4 people. It's obviously not perfectly in time, which is cool. So what I really also like about the way this is set up is what they call the two-handed layout. And that means, so here's my C, and that's a low C. If I move up 2 octaves with my right hand, I get the same thing. So for being expressive, I can basically play them both as if I was basically playing a snare drum or a drum with 2 drumsticks. That's a really nice way to be able to create rolls and just be expressive. The other thing that's very clever about this, which I really like, is the layout of all the individual keys is basically mirrored across every individual drum sound. So for instance, you always have, you know, your main hits on C, D, and E. And then there's usually a rough kind of like mini roll on C sharp. And then a flam on D sharp. And then an actual roll on F. And that's of course controlled by the mod wheel. And so it's very nice to be expressive and quick, so you can have these rolls that, and then when you hit another key right after that, it stops the roll. So that's very clever. And then if you look here, if you actually look at the GUI itself, it'll actually tell you what each individual hit is per key, which is very helpful. So for instance, down here, that's the 42-inch solo bass drum. Up here, we get a 32-inch, so on the F sharp. So that, of course, sounds a little bit different. And then up here, we get a 26. Great, you know, I think it sounds fantastic. There are a lot, or I wouldn't say a ton, but there are definitely, there's a variety of different drums in here. So everything from bass drums to surdos, which are another kind of like low tom kind of thing. And there are little previews here, so you can click it and hear basically what they sound like. Toms, rototoms, frame drums. I'm a big fan of a frame drum because my family's mostly Irish and I grew up on Celtic music, so frame drums, big yes for me. And these are probably the best frame drums I have in a library yet, so that's, on a personal level, super exciting. And snares, some darbukas, which those are nice, like clacky kind of percussive elements, and then scrap, which is basically scrap metal. And this is nice because I can use it to kind of do, like basically perform the function of a hi-hat with also being a little bit more unique. When we get down to the loops, that's where I really find the scraps to be the most interesting to me. Let's go to the frame drums just for a second. because there's also something that's really nice about this. So here's our basic frame. So it's 3 different frame drums. We have a 16-inch one. We have, or actually, I'm sorry, then we have just different articulations of said 16-inch. Then we have a 14-inch here. Yes, and then it's the 2-handed layout. So we have 2 frame drums, different sizes, but they, all the different kind of hits are sampled quite nicely. And like we had with the bass drums, for instance, F, it's going to be your roll. Same kind of thing, which is great. And then we also have brushes for a different kind of articulation. Sounds awesome. And now what I love about this too, we have all these different kind of mixes. So you can also create your own using the close mics, the overheads, the room, and then there's some also more affected versions in here that I'll go back to in a second. But for instance, this is the main clean mix. Mix 2 is going to be a little bit heavier, and then mix 3 is quite compressed and distorted. So naturally, I'm quite a big fan of it. So let's turn down mix 1 and just hit mix 3. It sounds awesome to me. Big fan of that. And then if we go back here, these are kind of affected mixes, which is interesting. So for instance, Crush is what it says. It always tells you information down here, which is really helpful. So it's a, you know, they say a mono overhead crushed by compressor for brass room pickup. Great, whatever. Let's go to the close pitched, because then what this does, this is going to be a pitch shifted version down of our close mics. So that's cool. Let's turn that up, and it should have, good, it brought the others down. So here is the pitch down ones. And let's mix that back in with mix 3. So that should keep, we want them both. Sounds really good. Let's take a look at the loops, because this is a whole different ball game. I'm going to look at, let's do the darbukas first, load those up, and it's going to basically choose based on like your host tempo. I believe I'm at 125 right now, so I think it's somewhat intelligent, not coincidental, but it could be coincidental, that they're going to choose the loop to me that's closest to my tempo, so it automatically chose loops at 130. And then on the bottom we have some reversed hits. Those are fun. But what's nice about this, so on your main note, your root C, that's going to be mostly a 8-bar loop, I believe. And then each individual key after that for the next, I want to say 4 notes, that's just going to be starting at a different point within the loop. So it's going to be starting at a different bar. It's not even like a different, it doesn't start halfway into the subdivision. Or and that's one thing I wish we had a little bit more of, and it could be my own ignorance, but I do wish we could kind of go into the loops and get, so I could start, for instance, on where a definitive hit is. I don't have to kind of wait for it. And everything, the nice thing is the F is always like a downbeat at the end, so that's really helpful just to end the loop. But I do wish we could kind of like, yeah, like go, like if there's a loop editor where I could kind of like choose my start position a little bit more surgically, that would be really handy for me. But aside from that, the loops are very effective. They sound good. And let's go into the scrap, because I really do like scrap metal. Stuff like that. Go to alternate loops. So that's nice. It does sound very good. My only other gripe about this too is I wish I could then tune these loops down and retain the tempo, because they do time stretch to be whatever your tempo is on the host, but when you bring down the master tuning, they do not retain tempo. So maybe in a future update they will do that, because I'd find that really helpful, really helpful. But anyway, just like the others, we also have the mixes. So let's bring up mix 3 again, because it's nice and beefy. So that's great. And there's a whole effects section, which is very handy too. So we could, of course, bring up all the reverb, wash it out. Compressor is going to do exactly what you think it is. Good sounding hit. There's a filter. And a normalize function, which normalize is going to work on the individual drum hits, not the loops. But it's really handy, because what it's going to do is basically make your lower velocities be the same volume as your higher velocities. So you don't want it all the time, because that's going to make it less expressive. But sometimes you want to have the really like soft velocities be really loud. That's going to do that for you. And then there's also a reverse function, which you have to enable for loop. But it is, you know what? Never mind. I just discovered that with there is a time stretch mode. So that might actually fix my little question. Let's try that momentarily. But you have to turn on the where is it? Enable reverse. And now we can, let's turn on compression a bit. Now we can reverse our loops. Helpful, and then it's also going to sync to your host, which is handy, and then you can choose your subdivision here, whether you want 16th notes or half notes or whole bars or what have you. Let's, for posterity's sake, I want to switch my stretch mode to, well, let's try CPU-friendly granular. So I'd like to think it's doing the hold. Let's hope it doesn't crash. Maybe now that I do that when I pitch, if I choose the pitch, it will actually retain tempo. It does. All right, well, that sounds awesome. The end. Kidding. That just answered that question. So ignore my original complaint, because that's great. Now let's look at the warps. And the warps are basically affected version of the loops that they've been run through analog gear, probably like modular synths like over there, or whatever else, probably effects pedals, who knows. But let's just go to, let's do the frame drum, because why not? Here is the loop. I'm going to change the stretch mode just to be default for now, because I don't want it to be granular, although I love the sound of granular. But let's just do the one that isn't going to really mangle it too hard. So you can hear it's kind of like a step filter kind of sound, which is cool. If you go to the mixer page now we have all the individual warps themselves, and it's about 10, I believe, or 12. So let's turn this one off. Let's go to a different warp. So you can hear there's some filtering going on, mostly like a high pass or a band pass filter. Let's go to a different one over here. Let's try 5. That has a nice stereo panning thing going on there, and it's very filtery, a little bit gated. That's nice. Let's go to, let's try 11. I'm just choosing these arbitrarily. Great. So it does a lot of cool stuff. The scrap warps I find really handy too, and like the others, you can reverse these if you choose to. But you can hear like that's really gated. And let's just try 11 for fun. Pretty simple. Let's do one more. What's 9? That's cool. So there's a lot of fun stuff in there. It's really quite a comprehensive library that definitely has some unique elements, which I find great. There are a ton of different reverbs in here as well. I'll spare you the demo of that, but they all sound really good. I actually tend to like Dark Hall, which tends to be the default one the most, but it sounds really good to my ears, and that's what I've been using. And I'm just going to basically show this little demo I just pulled together of which I'll probably end up turning into a tracker at some point. But I basically, I just want to really like use a bunch of instances of hammers all together and make a rough little demo. It's not mixed or anything, it's just me making an idea. But everything in here, with the exception of a kick drum and a couple melodic elements, which like for instance this, that actually originally came from a guitar, but I threw it into Native Instruments Stray Light, which is like a granular amazing machine. And it's great for turning things into weird things. So there's like some patty kind of stuff, and it's just atmosphere, but really, you know, hammers is doing all the percussion and the weight, and it's very cool. So this is what I did. Pretty fun, right? Yeah, it was inspiring. So it's a great library. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm very fortunate to have it show up in my email. So give it a look if you're looking for a new drum library, regardless if you're into film music or you're just looking for something unique to even add into electronic music or really anything. Hammers is going to offer you something different than your usual library, and I'm a big fan of it. I found it very inspiring, and I hope you find it inspiring as well, and give it a look.